All right, Fabs. I think we're going to kick off this week in the Great White North of Minnesota. We have Adam Thielen going down, possibly. Do you think that possibly KJ Osborne could step in and fill a fantasy role for him?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it's a true high ankle sprain, he's going to miss several weeks, I would think, but I'm not a doctor. So this is a short week. So I would expect that he won't play. And Osborne is in that wide receiver 3 flex range. And I mean, the same goes for Tyler Conklin, who had 9 targets last week. More attractive tight end 1 this week for sure, with Thielen out. So move Conklin up, move Osborne up. Osborne is probably one of the most added wide receivers in fantasy this week. They're playing the Steelers, and their defense is kind of no great shakes.
Do you think that this, while the weapons around him are being moved up, is this moving Kirk Cousins down for the playoffs if Thielen's really out?
Doesn't help. I mean, it's certainly going to hurt his value because Thielen is a guy that he utilized in the red zone. He's a playmaker, a touchdown machine over the last year and a half. But am I still starting Kirk Cousins? I mean, if the matchup's right, absolutely. I think he's on the border of being a QB1 this week against Pittsburgh.
So with the Packers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 10 and 9 targets in his last 2 games before Green Bay's Week 13 bye. Are you trusting this guy as a starter going forward?
I never trust Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I just can't. Because the second you think that you got something, he gives you 3 for 32. And so like this week, he's a desperation flex play for me against the Bears, and that's it. I get it. I like the targets. There's no question about that. But, I have a hard time trusting him. I mean, on the positive side there, the matchup's good. And he does have Aaron Rodgers in his 9 toes that he can actually feel throwing him the football. So that's a benefit for sure. But is he a week in and week out starter? Certainly not.
Yeah, I've taken flyers on both him and Lazard and ended up with 0 burgers on my team. So
yeah, it's
definitely
rough.
How about with the Washington football team with Logan Thomas out for the rest of the season? Is Ricky Seals-Jones a serious option for you?
Yeah, I mean, but is he ready to come back? Right? I mean, he was practicing last week. If he's 100% or at least close to it, where he can be a go, then yeah, tight end's a tough position to fill. And Thomas seemed like he was getting into a groove at the touchdown last week, and then unfortunately he hurts his knee. So yeah, Seals-Jones will be a popular add off the waiver wire if he hasn't been already this week. Probably Tyler Conklin will be the most popular or one of the most popular, but Ricky Seals-Jones showed earlier in the season that when he played a lot, and he was getting a lot of targets from Taylor Heineke. So just got to wait to see if he's able to come back this week and face the Cowboys.
What are your feelings on Scary Terry for the rest of the season?
Man, I get it. I mean, he's had some down weeks. There have been some peaks and valleys. He's a guy that I have to play every week. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't know who's deep enough at wide receiver where you can actually sit Terry McLaurin. And I like him this week. The Cowboys defense is not like in fantasy. The Cowboys defense is really good, and they have a lot of really good weapons. And hopefully, we're going to get Randy Gregory here back at some point soon. But they gave it up, man. I mean, look at Deontay Harris last week. He had a big game. Little Jordan Humphrey had a nice game as well. So they'll give it up to quarterbacks and wide receivers. I think Terry McLaurin's going to have a good game this weekend.
So for the Falcons, Mike Davis had a great first drive and a pretty decent game. What do you think about him going forward?
Not much. Not much. Honestly, I mean, he's bench fodder. He's got a revenge game this week against the Panthers, but I don't care. I don't trust him. And so, it's Cordero Patterson. It's been Russell Gage, he's the wide receiver 8 in the last 3 weeks, which is bananas. And then Kyle Pitts, who just is, starting him is the Pitts. Let's put it that way. But I mean, you got to be desperate to start Mike Davis this week. And you know what? Maybe, he's touchdown dependent. So if he gets into the end zone, maybe he gets a goal line opportunity. Then, maybe you hit a jackpot there, but I can't start him with any confidence.
So what do you think about the Jets? Corey Davis is out for the rest of the season. Is that right? Good news for Elijah Moore?
Yeah, but now he's hurt. Apparently, they expect him to play, but he's got some kind of leg injury. It popped up today. So I hope he plays, because I didn't even like him last week because Davis came back and the Eagles defense has been tough on wide receivers. And Moore had a good stat line. And now they got the Saints coming to town. I would obviously start Elijah Moore as a wide receiver 3 flex if he's going to play. But we'll see. Keep tabs on his status the rest of the week. If he can't go and Davis is out, then holy cow. I mean, Jamison Crowder is going to be a popular streamer coming up.
So the Ravens and Rashad Bateman after a 0-point game this week. A lot of frustrated fantasy owners. What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, I can't play him. And if you need to pick up a free agent, I could see dropping him. Because Sammy Watkins, it came back, and now they're kind of at full strength in terms of their pass catchers, right, for the most part. So, and it's hard to trust a guy like Bateman in an offense that runs the ball so much. But even still, Lamar Jackson has not played well. Like in the last 3 weeks, he's turning the ball over way too much. Last week, I believe he had 17 and change in terms of fantasy points, and it was the best game he's had in 3 weeks. He's not been good. Quarterback has been brutal this year. Kyler's been good, but he's had a couple of stinkers. Patrick Mahomes in his last 6 games has been a dud 5 times. 5 times. Now he's got the Raiders this week, which means, maybe he bounces back. That's the only team he's done anything against in the last 5 or 6 weeks. He had 5 touchdowns against them 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But Lamar hasn't been good either. And Lamar had been throwing a lot to Mark Andrews, which we all like as fantasy managers. But yeah, Bateman's a tough sell for me right now.
If you're looking at the Seahawks and you're looking at DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, which one are you going with going forward?
I have Lockett ranked higher than him this week, but it's a week to week kind of thing. If they can't get off against the Texans, for crying out loud, honestly, Russell was the QB9 2 weeks ago. Remember, he had the late touchdown to Freddie Swain, and he had scored over 19 fantasy points, and everyone was like, wow, really? Well, yeah, with that last touchdown, he wasn't bad. Last week, he should have scored over 20, but Gerald Everett stinks. But Russell should have scored over 20, and he didn't. I could see Russell having a good game this week. I like it. The Texans defense is not very good. The Texans are not very good. And I feel like this is a get right game. The Seahawks have no ground game at all. When you're signing Adrian Peterson and you're floating around, Rashad Penny, who's been an absolute disaster as a first round pick, and Alex Collins is banged up, or he was a scratch last week. They got to throw the ball. They got to get that passing game going. And I think this is the week where Russell, Tyler, and DK, and not that you'd ever sit DK, but people are bummed. He's been bad. He's had 7.1 points or fewer, I think, in 3 of his last 4 games. He's been bad. But I'm playing him this week against the Texans. I have both wide receivers are startable assets this week. And hopefully playing the Texans will be good for what ails that offense.
If we're looking at the Chargers, where do you rank Mike Williams with Keenan Allen potentially missing games due to the COVID list?
Yeah, I mean, I have him top 12 right now at wide receiver. And then Jalen Guyton's a sneaky little play this week too. But of course, you never know who's going to be the guy. It could be Josh Palmer behind Williams. You never really know. It's hard to guess because Herbert's going to throw the ball to who's open. Unfortunately, you're probably going to lose Keenan Allen if he's not able to have 2 consecutive negative tests, assuming he's vaccinated. So, yeah, Mike Williams is a good play, and he kind of woke up last week, had a 100-yard game, and it wasn't a great matchup either against the Bengals. So maybe he's about to have that second wave. But yeah, Mike Williams is a good play this week. If Allen's not playing, he's even better.
Moving to Chicago, is David Montgomery a certified RB1 for you for the rest of the season?
Not RB1, but he's in your lineup. I didn't like him last week, but I told people, you got to play him. This week, I don't like Zeke. I don't like James Robinson, but you kind of got to play him. Who are you going to play? Unless you're in a 6-team league or an 8-team league, I mean, who are you going to play, really? So he ended up having a really good game because of the weather conditions, really, and the Bears just leaned on him, both as a runner and a passer. But RB1, I don't know if I'm going to go RB1, but is he a guy that you're going to start every week? Yeah, absolutely.
General advice for managers still fighting to make the playoffs. Is it okay to drop players such as Antonio Brown or Calvin Ridley if they need the roster spots for this week?
Well, if you don't have a league where you could put Ridley on a reserve spot and not a bench spot, then he shouldn't be on your roster at this point. We've heard nothing about him coming back. And why would he? Atlanta's terrible, right? And if he's not right mentally, I don't know that he'd come back. I have Ridley in one league. I've seen him dropped in a bunch of leagues, but he's on a reserve spot, so it doesn't hurt me, right? If you need to pick a player up, yeah. Now, in terms of Antonio Brown, I mean, that's tricky. If the Buccaneers keep him, and there have been reports that they're deciding whether or not they're going to keep him or not, I mean, he could end up being an asset for you in the fantasy playoffs. He's going to be out. He's got 2 more games to miss. And then so he would be back in week 16, which is the semifinals of the fantasy playoffs. But if you're desperate and you need that spot, then yeah, I mean, you need to make the playoffs. You need to work on, improving your seeding, and you need to pick somebody up and start them. Like, yeah, then I would drop Antonio Brown, but he could end up being an asset for you down the stretch, but we just don't know.